The Terracotta Warriors, the underground army of China's first emperor Qin Shihuang, are known as the eighth wonder of the world. While most of the Terracotta Warriors exhibited at museums look a monochromatic grey today, initially they were painted with bold colors. In this edition of Footprints, researchers and relics conservators review the true colors of the Terracotta Warriors. In the relics restoration room of the Shanxi Emperor Qin Shihuang's mausoleum site museum stands a terracotta warrior about 1.85 meters tall. It has largely regained its original valiant appearance after conservators pieced him together from what was originally a pile of over 100 fragmented pieces.
This terracotta warrior is a mid-level military officer in ranking. This can be ascertained by checking on clues, including his crown style, armor, and other ornaments and accessories on the armor.
Lan Desheng, a researcher at the Emperor Qin Shihuang's mausoleum site museum, has been engaged in the conservation and restoration of the terracotta statues for 24 years. He identifies this warrior as a military official warrior. Emperor Qin Shihuang's underground army legions are made up of life-sized soldiers of different military ranks, including junior, middle, and senior-level officers and ordinary soldiers. Archaeologists can differentiate terracotta warriors' military rank by their height, clothing and armor, and also headwear, with taller figures and more elaborate attire usually indicating higher status. Lan and his team have been working on this military official statue for over 3 years. During the process, he often marvels at the exceptional technical and artistic qualities of the ancient craftsmen.
Look at his eyes. If you walk from the left end to the right end, his eyes appear to be following you. It's like the ancient craftsmen of the Qin dynasty had already mastered human anatomy. They seem to have used a diagram that divides the human face into the upper, middle, and lower parts from the hairline down to the chin. It's just amazing how they made the warrior facial features so proportionately distributed.
Contrary to the grey or muddy-colored terracotta warriors people often see in museums, the clay soldier in the restoration room has a painted surface of pleasantly looking bright colors. Its right sleeve carries a layer of blue-green. According to Lan, that is the original paint on his armor and clothing. The first terracotta warrior's pit was discovered in 1974. Thousands of life-sized warriors were unearthed and thousands more remain to be excavated at the archaeological site. Located at the foot of Lishan Mountain, 35 kilometers northeast of Xi'an City, Shanxi Province, the Qin Shihuang Mausoleum is where the first emperor of the Qin dynasty was buried. Emperor Qin Shihuang unified all of China in 221 BC and claimed himself to be the first emperor of China. Upon his death, these life-sized clay sculptures of warriors, cavalry horses, and bronze chariots standing in battle formations made up his subterranean army, designed to protect him in the afterlife. They bear testimony to the military formation of the Qin Empire. The Terracotta Army has been hailed as one of the most significant archaeological excavations of the 20th century. In 1987, the mausoleum of the Emperor Qin Shihuang and the Terracotta Warriors pits were officially included in the World Heritage List. Although visitors to the Terracotta Warriors Museum see mostly grey or muddy-colored sculptures, researchers say these terracotta warriors originally all had color paint over them when they were buried.
我们从外观上来看是没有的。你一看
At first glance, one can hardly see any color paint on them. They just look gray. But when you get closer, you start to notice bits of color paint scattered on certain parts of them.
What methods did craftsmen use to create such vivid colors over the clay figures 2,000 years ago? Are the pigments they used synthetic or natural ones? We raised these questions with researcher Lan Desheng.
The original pigments they used include both natural and synthesized ones. The green color you see here is called stone green, and the red one is cinnabar. Both are inorganic minerals. The black color is lacquer, which is a kind of processed tree sap. The small patch of purple you see here is what we used to call Han blue or Han purple. It is a synthesized pigment we now call copper barium silicate. It means people already used synthesized pigments in the Qin dynasty.
During the more than 2,000 years from the Qin dynasty until the excavation of the warriors, there were few official records of the Terracotta Warriors' existence. So how did the color paint on the warriors disappear?
The Terracotta Warriors and horses have undergone two major types of damage after being buried. First, it is evident now that they'd been through arson. And during our excavation, we found mud underneath the Terracotta Warriors, which indicated that the pits were once flooded. So, due to fire and flooding, the color paint on the Terracotta Warriors either fell off or hollowed out.
Zhou Ping is the vice president of the Emperor Qin Shihuang's Mausoleum Site Museum. She was also one of the first professionals in China to receive systematic modern cultural relics restoration training. She believes that the color paint of the Terracotta Warriors flaked most seriously during the second burning process. According to her, in history, the terracotta pits were set on fire by forces led by Xiang Yu and Liu Bang, whose rebellion ended the rule of the Qin dynasty.
The most serious damage occurred during that process. We could see that with the statues that fell flat on the ground, the color paint had been better retained where it had contact with the soil, whereas where there was no contact with the soil, the paint was almost all gone.
Just as the researchers have pointed out, with the excavation of the Terracotta Warriors, archaeologists discovered that these terracotta figures had suffered multiple episodes of damage in underground, such as fire, subsidence, and flooding, resulting in most of the color paint on them falling off, leaving only some mottled traces. After initial excavation, exposure to drastic change in humidity of the environment also led to the curling up and flaking of what was remained of the color paint. All these factors collectively resulted in most of the excavated warriors losing their original vivid colors. Zhou Ping had participated in the restoration of two stone carving masterpieces of horses from the tomb of Emperor Taizong of the Tang Dynasty about 1400 years ago. They are currently housed in a university museum in the US. She was also one of the two Chinese relics protection experts joining the restoration efforts of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Over the years, she and other researchers have been engaged in the work of restoring the original color of the Terracotta Warriors with new technology, although this is a meticulous and time-consuming process.
I think this work is quite necessary and something we must do. The Terracotta Warriors were each made with color paint all over the body. Restoring their painted surface does not only mean we will be able to see the Terracotta Warriors in their original colors. It also means the inheritance of a traditional craft from ancient China's Qin dynasty.
Currently, using the original raw materials and original craft is the go-to principle of restoring cultural relics. This is to preserve, to the greatest extent possible, the authenticity and integrity of historic relics. To restore the paint on the terracotta, the first step is to understand the craftsmanship and raw materials used by Qin dynasty craftsmen.
It is challenging to preserve the paint on the Terracotta Warriors. This is because after the clay statues were initially fired, they were painted with a layer of natural lacquer derived from tree sap. On top of that, color paint was applied. Why did the color paint flake so badly? It has something to do with that natural lacquer layer. It's organic, so it wears faster and more seriously in the natural environment.
Then how to get the paint back on the statues? As early as 1992, the Shanxi Provincial Bureau of Cultural Relics joined hands with German Bavarian Bureau for Cultural Relics Protection, as well as some overseas museums, to develop the color paint protection techniques. As the technology matured, the third excavation of the Terracotta Warriors pit began in 2009 and continues to this day. They innovatively moved the relic protection laboratory to the excavation site.
This is our on-site protection lab at number 1 pit of the Terracotta Warriors. This lab was set up in 2024. We bring the lab to the archaeological front to offer immediate solutions after excavation. The first and the most urgent on-site protection issue we face is to prevent color paint and clay pieces from being exposed to abrupt changes in the humidity level right after excavation.
Inside the lab, humidity level and temperatures are strictly controlled. According to Zhou, excessively high or low humidity levels should both be avoided.
The temperature and humidity levels should decrease in a gradient for better preservation of relics. When the Terracotta Warriors are freshly unearthed, the humidity level stays at more than 90%. Then the humidity level should slowly and steadily decrease. The longer this process takes, the better the preservation effect and the safer it will be for the unearthed objects. Eventually, it will come to a stable humidity level. The humidity level should never be allowed to take a dive in a short time. If it does, the surface paint on the statues will shrink and flake off, taking the surface color with it.
Meanwhile, conservators also need to screen out the original paint scattered in the soil. Sometimes the color paint has become powdery. Researchers will have to use micro-pasting technology to recapture these powders and restore them to the original state. Again, Zhou Ping agrees that this is a challenging process.
In ancient Chinese painting pigments, organic binders such as fish glue were often used. Such binder substances were susceptible to water, air, and microorganisms in its long-buried environment and has deteriorated. So we see a bit of a red patch here, a little green there, and a bit of blue in another spot. It's inconsistent.
But with the help of modern technology, researchers managed to extract the broken pieces of paint in the soil onto a thin layer of mulberry silk net. Then they carefully remove the soil adhering to the paint till only a thin layer of color paint is attached to the silk net. This complicated procedure is just the first step of a long restoration process. The real challenge lies with how to locate where these pigments had originally been on the clay figures 2,000 years ago and reapply them. As Lan Desheng explains, for this work, researchers often use 3D digital scanning technology to accurately trace hidden paint on the Terracotta Warriors. They then apply the original paint back on the statues with a technique called paint layer reattachment.
为啥是叫彩绘回贴呢？这是基于丝网加固的彩绘回贴法。
This technique is based on the reinforcement effect of the silk screen. Mulberry silk works by effectively becoming a screen where fragments of color paint are attached. Then we paste it back to its original positions on the Terracotta Warriors.
Lan says it may take 2 years for conservators to extract some patches of original paint out of the soil and paste them back on the Terracotta Warriors. And that doesn't include the time needed for reconstructing the statues themselves. As Lan mentioned at the beginning, a terracotta statue might come in the form of a pile of 100 broken pieces.
这个时间就不定了。我们首先要看这个
The restoration time for each statue varies. It depends on the number of fragments and the number of paint pieces recaptured. The repair time is typically longer, around 1 to 2 years, if there are too many broken fragments, especially in the load-bearing parts, and when the paint bits are plentiful. For example, we once used 4 years to restore a military general warrior, which involved a large number of broken pieces and paint fragments.
The restoration work is a test of patience, skill, and dedication of the researchers. For archaeologists and conservators, the reward often lies in the excitement after a stunning discovery of history in a random piece of broken clay.
我现在看来，这一块小残片它就是一本历史书。
It seems to me each small broken piece constitutes a page of history. It doesn't matter whether this small fragment comes from the statue of a military general or the armor of a foot soldier. Under the ultra-fine microscope, I can get a lot of information craftsmen of the Qin dynasty left on it. That includes traces of the production process and the information of individual craftsmen. We say each of the thousands of terracotta warriors has a face of his own, because each craftsman of the Qin dynasty molded the faces differently.
Day in, day out, with each statue satisfactorily restored, conservators like Lan Desheng are often overwhelmed with excitement.
然后你看，我还修复了一件马，那么那一件马。
This terracotta horse was restored by me. If you put your hand under its tongue, you feel as if it is breathing out air on your hand. And when you look into the eyes of a terracotta warrior, it seems to be communicating with you, telling you its story and history.
Excavation of Emperor Qin Shihuang's great terracotta army is still ongoing today. While these silent terracotta soldiers were designed to guard Emperor Qin Shihuang in the spirit world, they also carry with them the wisdom of craftsmen of ancient China. And today's archaeologists and conservators are doing their utmost to help bring the true colors back to these 2,000-year-old statues. With that, we conclude this episode of Footprints. If you're interested in learning more incredible stories of individuals who have left their prints in China, just key in Footprints and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ningjing. Bye for now.